I-25 corridor and I-70 corridor, be able to give each of the corridors its due and to be able to tailor the needs to folks with the connection in Denver. You can see the purpose up there. I won't read all of it. I will emphasize the italicized part that you'd only build a high-speed transit system if it delivers social, environmental, economic benefits that are greater than the cost of building it and operating it. The needs at the bottom are your good planning things. We're going to have growth. We need to have economic development. We need to improve mobility and offer choices. So what does that mean to each of you? I mean, what are we talking about in terms of growth? By 2040, Colorado, today at 5 million people, will go to 8 million people by 2040. The Front Range alone will add 2 million people. The I-70 corridor between the west edge of Denver and Eagle County Regional Airport will add almost 250,000 permanent residents. So when we talk about what the state might look like, those are the kinds of things that we have to look for to provide a transportation system that takes us into the future. What did the two studies look at? We looked at a lot of technologies, we looked at a lot of alignments. We developed engineering-based cost estimates. As the Rocky Mountain Rail Authority study had done, we took it one step further and costed things out on a per-mile basis, whether you're on structure, you're on grade, you're below grade, and took it to that level of detail so we have a better confidence in the cost. We confirmed the findings that Diane mentioned, that the two systems have to work together. If you do one or the other by itself, the benefits just aren't as great. And then we evaluated funding and financing possibilities. So I'll leave that one for us to discuss a little bit more later. And bottom line was that the benefits outweighed the costs. High-speed transit delivers more choice for people making longer distance trips. Speed makes a huge difference. Right now there's 2 commercially viable technologies with many others appearing that they're about to be ready to be commercially available. 10 years ago, maglev was a pipe dream. It didn't exist anywhere in the world. It now exists in Shanghai and has been operating there for 20 years, the high-speed version. There are many other sort of medium speed or lower speed versions that operate other places in the world. So there's a lot of technology development coming along, and that brings the price down. Alignment-wise, folks say, well, why don't you just buy some used train stock and throw it on the existing tracks? Colorado, compared to many other parts of the country where you hear those kinds of stories, we just don't have the infrastructure. Our freight railroads are maxed out, and particularly with the growth of oil and gas development on the Front Range and up in this area, there isn't any spare capacity. There's not abandoned railroads like you find in the upper Midwest and over to the New England area where industry has left a lot of choices for a lot of people. Cost-wise, the numbers are big. They might look staggering, but when you look at the cost of building interstate highways and expanding those in urban areas or expanding them along the I-70 corridors, the costs are nearly identical to those. And I can touch on ridership, but I'm going to keep us moving along here. High-speed transit with current funding sources is not feasible without some new funding source. You saw the cost on the previous slide. Substantial federal funds will be needed to make this work, and non-federal sources also are needed to make it work, to provide the match to the federal funds. High-speed transit is no different from our roadway system. It's about what we all as Coloradans want to do for our economic development engine. What's going to make our state economy move forward? And that's the choice that we need to, and discussion that we need to have is where do we best put our transportation dollar to move our economy forward? Interoperability with RTD is important from the perspective of the federal folks. We don't want to create a competitive system to RTD and make RTD less effective or have the billions that have been spent on the urban system be underutilized. So when we look at, Diane also mentioned interconnectivity and what that means to all of us. So DIA's got 60 million passengers today running through it. By 2030 it'll have 100 million passengers running through it. currently has 6 runways. It's master planned and environmentally cleared for 13 runways, so it could more than double in size compared to today. It's one of the few airports in the entire country that has that story. So Colorado is poised for growth. RTE just itself has 20 million light rail riders today, and we'll have 80 million light and commuter rail riders by 2035. So when you talk about connecting the system together, you're tapping all of those markets, you're providing the ability of people to have different choices and move across different systems. So here's the vision that came out of the 2 studies. North-south, about 180 miles, east-west, about 160 miles. You'll see some dashed lines there. Moving north-south, if you were to build infrastructure, the airport is per the previous slide, is a very major market. And from the I-70 corridor, the preference is to move straight across the Denver metro area, the dashed blue line there. So you don't have a transfer going to the airport. And additional work needs to be done to figure out how the connections work to get to Union Station. It's very cost prohibitive to easily get high-speed system to Union Station, but you can get awfully close. So in 2012, we said CDOT did a statewide rail study, and on the left side were sort of the policy statements that said we ought to go after money, we ought to develop ideas further, and we ought to support linkages. And so what we're doing now with the completion of those 2 studies is we are going to, you'll see in plans regionally, statewide, that there'll be mentions of both of these studies in them, and we will complete some additional studies to answer the Union Station question. So I think I will leave it at that. There's me and my counterpart back in the office. If you have any questions, let us know. And with that, I'll turn it back to Paul.
And finally, let's listen to Jonathan Flynn from Steamboat Springs.
I'm sorry about my background.
The slide before was actually a picture of one of our passengers at about 6:30 in the morning when the bus was late. We know that there, so.
Oh, the bear.
All right, well, let me tell you everything about Steamboat Springs, Kansas in about 5 minutes here.